Today I'm going to do an arrangement for you, all foliage. So no flowers in this at all. I'm just going to use different foliages, and I'm going to make quite a traditional design today. I've got a selection of foliage here, which I'll tell you about as we go along. The main thing to think about when you're doing an all foliage arrangement is contrast. So you need a contrast of form, colour, texture and size. As long as you've got a good contrast between your different sorts of foliage, you will find it'll be quite a successful thing. So I'm going to make a start. I've got, as I said, various foliages here, but I want to get some height into this first. So I'm going to use this Phormium. This is Phormium Tenax. Quite a nice strong thick foliage, so it's a nice straight foliage. Just get the height right here. That's about right. So I'm starting at the back here and you're looking at the front. And then I need another one of these. A bit lower down. And then we'll get a little bit of width with this. So I've got some ivy leaves here. This one is Heterocolchica Sulphur Heart. Beautiful variegated foliage. Very, very useful in the garden, very hardy. And one of those this side. My oasis is slightly higher than the rim of the container so that I can get a downward flow, and I'm using biodegradable floral foam. Then on the other side, I'm going to use this Fatsia japonica spider's web. Lovely mottled foliage on this. A contrast, you see, of colour and form here. Already we've got interest in this. The biggest mistake most people make when you're doing all foliage is to put too much in, and too much of the same kind of colour, so too much all green or too much very fine foliage. You have to get that contrast of shape and form. So here you see, here's a contrast of form. This is quite a fluffy foliage, a conifer here, completely different to this. And this one is a bluey green. So again, different colour. You need some green in this, not all variegated, otherwise it's too busy. Just cleaning off the stems here because you don't want to push that foliage into the foam. So here we can put that, and another bit next to it just to fill it out a little bit. I'm grouping this foliage because it does make a better impact. And here I've got some Hedera buttercup. If this is grown in full sun, it is quite yellow. But if it's grown in shade, it becomes more of a lime green. And I've got some of the larger leaves from this here, and you can see how you get beautiful shading on it. This is grown in deep shade, but it does get a little bit of sun sometimes, so you can see where the leaves have covered each other underneath it's green. So it's a lovely foliage to have. But I'm going to use these again for a little bit of height here. And then at the front we'll put something a little bit different. I've got hosta leaves here. Always very useful. Who just doesn't love a hosta? And this foliage here is Thyopsis dolabrata. Now it's that colour on its upper side, but underneath it's much more interesting. You've got this beautiful mottled silver to it. So I always like to use it upside down, really. So again, we're getting a nice contrast over this side. This is quite a large leaf, and so is that. And so I want a contrast of form in here, and that is just going to be exactly right. I want to soften this line a little bit, so I've got some of this beautiful honeysuckle, and beautiful flow to it. And it's got beautiful red stems as well, which is quite a nice contrast with the yellow netting appearance of it. Here's a lovely contrast of form and colour here, and this is Buddleia glomerata. Gorgeous silvery foliage, evergreen, needs a sheltered position in the garden. Flowers in spring with fluffy yellow flowers. Really lovely shrub to have if you have the room for it. So I'm going to put this in here. So again, we've got that lovely contrast of textures and shapes and colours. Now building it up a little more over here. Got some beautiful heuchera leaves. This one is Forever Purple. And then I have another one here, and this is Shanghai. Lovely on the back as well. So let's start to build up the centre now with some of these. And can you see the lovely contrast of colour coming through in this now, giving a lot of interest? Now the focal area is quite important in an all-foliage design. There's various things you can use. You could use succulents, rosette type succulents, or you could use a yellowy foliage, because yellow is quite a strong colour and will draw your eye. Or you could wire some leaves together to make rosettes. So you would just wire them around like that, and then another one the same. Maybe a third one like that. Just roll them and wire them. So there you would have quite a nice rosette, and you probably need about 3 of those. But I'm not going to use those today because I've got a rather nice foliage here, which is called Plectranthus sasha. And this is quite yellowy and beautiful on the underside as well. It's a tender plant, it's really a house plant, although it does quite well outside in the summer. So I'm going to use these as my focal point, and they will show up quite well against the darker heuchera leaves. So they make a nice focal area. Now I just want to build this up a little bit more. Give it a little bit more flow. And I've got this beautiful jasmine, and this one is Fiona Sunrise. If it's in the sun, it is really yellow, but if it's more in the shade like some of this is, you see it's a more limey green. But in either case, it's a very, very attractive plant to grow. So I definitely want to put some of that in. So that gives me a nice contrast of colour again against the purple heuchera leaves. And the other thing I want to put in is some of this snake grass. It isn't a grass at all. It's a horsetail. It's Equisetum hyemale. Its common name is snake grass, or also scouring rush, because in days gone by people would use this to scour pots because it's very rough. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's also, you can feel the ridges on it. But it's a very useful foliage to use because it's very straight, so you can use it upright, but you can also manipulate it. So I'm going to use a bit of it straight and a bit manipulated. So what we can do with this is to make it into triangle shapes. That's just one of the ways you can do it. So it's very easy to bend. Just push it into the foam. I think we just need another one on that side. Cut the two ends at an angle, they'll go into the foam much easier. So a little bit smaller on this one, I think. So I just want to strengthen this side a little bit, adding a few more bits and pieces in. So I've got another formium here. I'm going to loop this. It needs something a little bit more solid on this side just to get the visual balance correct. And then with the bit that's been cut off, I can use that too. So that just strengthened this side a little bit, and it's made it into more of an asymmetric triangle.